Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the relaunch of AstroSoup. After a 3-month hiatus brought on by a virus I thought was trying to make me its permanent home, followed by some pretty intense astrological transits, I finally poked my head. I kind of feel like the groundhog, except it didn't happen in February. It happened in, I think, April. Anyway, um, whenever you talk about doing a relaunch, that kind of means a recalibration. So it gave me some time to really take a look at the process that I'd been through since I started the podcast. Because interestingly enough, um, I began things as I mostly do, which is with the need for perfection in mind, but not really any idea of how to achieve that. Which of course it means you're always going to figure out that perfection is elusive at best. Generally not doable, depending on how far down that rabbit hole you want to go. So I thought I'd give you just a little bit of an example um, of from my own life in terms of the need for perfection. And it kind of demonstrates how my consciousness works anyway. So this would be 1972. And I just graduated from university and I got my first journalism job, first reporter job. And so I was so excited and I started my day and I stood and I stared at the phone for 20 minutes after I got my first assignment because I was terrified that no one would talk to me. And how was I going to convince somebody to agree to be interviewed? And it was really simple when it boiled right down to it. So there's that side. And then there's the other side of me, because it was a small newspaper in a large city, which was a really great place to learn the craft. And so most of the typewriters had a glitch or two in them. Well, I managed to find one that didn't have one, so I could sustain that level of perfection for a little bit. But I chose to write on it so no one would take it. Don't touch my fucking typewriter. So as you can see, those are kind of like the two different sides of my personality in a capsule. So how does this pertain to the relaunch of AstroSoup? Well, I think I already tried the 20 minutes of staring at the phone part, and now we're into the don't touch my fucking typewriter part. I realized that one of my gifts is storytelling. And actually, my journalism career helped me learn that. It also helped me know myself in terms of how much I was interested in people and change. And so, as you can imagine, that didn't align very well with a traditional news only approach. In fact, at one point in my career, I said, I'd really like to be a feature writer because I was mostly interested in people, not in how much the taxes were going to go up. So, and I was told there wasn't any room at the paper. So that kind of describes, yeah, my overall experience in life. And and it's taken me a long time to accept that I'm an outlier. But along the way, I had a lot of wonderful experiences and some very challenging experiences. And because I was interested in not being stuck, uh, I gained a lot of wisdom along the way. And so I'm hoping over time that I'll be able to share more of the stories of my life, not necessarily to point a finger in my direction as much as to say uh, wisdom is always available to us. If we only understood that the stories of our lives are important, they're not just a footnote that somebody's likely to forget about. So this is kind of where the shift in approach is going to be. Going to continue to do a lot of the things I've been doing up to this point. Some of them will now be delivered in stories on Facebook and reels on Instagram. Just little short snippets that I can pop in once or twice a week, and you don't have to listen to the full hour. So the hour, not that I'll be abandoning. For instance, there is only going to be 2 episodes now, not 4, but the first one will always be, what the energies are going to be like while the sun goes through that particular sign. And I think that's about all I have to say. I mean, I could go and talk a little bit more about how my life is going to connect to the podcast, but then you wouldn't have to show up and find out, after all, Uranus just went into Gemini, so the emphasis is on curiosity. And so now I'm just going to move on. I think I've said what I want to say. Oh, one more thing. As over the next little while, I will be inviting people to sign up for my newsletter. Of course, I forgot to bring the link where you could do that directly. But if you'd like to email me at aquariusstellium@outlook.com, I'll be happy to either send you the link or enroll you. If you have to send the email, probably that's the least I could do, is put your name in my subscriber list. Anyway, and I'm in the midst of recalibrating that as well. So not hoping, that's not the right word. Planning to, thank you, Andrea, planning to have exclusive content, not what I meant, content in my newsletter. For example, I always do AstroBites for every sun cycle. Well, I also used to do, under a different name, do Astro Insights. And so those will be part of the newsletter, and there's going to be some other exclusive content that I have yet to determine what it is, because so much of my life, things kind of just download when I least expect them. So upcoming, we're going to be talking to Faye Blake about health and beliefs. And if you have a chance to sign up for her blog, especially if you are an astrologer, but even if you're not, because Faye has a really good grasp of how to explain things astrological without killing you softly with astrological jargon. So that would be a great idea. And I think and if I didn't, when I post this video on Facebook, the link to the video, I will also post the links to Faye's blog. Sorry. Anyway, and of course, coming up is What's in the Bowl. We're going to be talking about the major players during this sun cycle in Gemini. As far as the lunar rhythms are concerned, those will be discussed in episode 2, which I'll be doing the same day with Frank Clifford. Part of the reason for the compression and not there being a break between the 2 episodes is I'm off to an astrological conference next week, and so let's just jam them all in at the same time. Also, just a reminder that when we begin the Cancer cycle, that's when we'll be going essentially once every 14 or 15 days, twice the cycle. So I'm just going to check my notes in case I forget. The Cancer cycle episodes will be on June the 22nd and July the 6th at 2:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And of course, when I start to remind everybody when it is, I'll be putting in the other time zones. So I'm just going to take a breath. And now we're going to have what I call a little bit of goofiness, in which I force Andrea and Faye to participate, whether they want to or not. In fact,
so goofiness. What we'll say about that.
We're already there. See, doesn't take much prompting. So I'm going to let them start. So the question was that I irritated them with was, which is maybe where the annoyance will come from. What annoyed you the most recently? Andy? Faye? Somebody?
Anybody?
Okay, I mean, I'll
Maybe
start
other people can
if
participate if they want.
I'll annoy you by starting. Okay, so I have this neighbor who is a friend, I'm saying in quotes because we're trying to be friends, but he has declared that hugs are very important and he only hugs people if he feels a certain way about them. So no hugging him. At which point I have to decide, am I gonna try to hug him and be like, did you want a hug? Or, or like, so what now it's just like this weird power thing. I feel like I'm like, now I'm like, well, I don't even want to hug you. Like I'm not even interested in hugging you. So then he told me I played power games because of that. And like, I don't know, it's just entirely annoying.
Well, apparently it wouldn't make any difference what you said. You were going to come out on the short end of the stick.
Well, that's what annoys me about the whole thing. It's like a game, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose you could have said, well, I don't know who's playing the game, but it's certainly not me.
Oh, I don't know. I want to stick up for your neighbor. I'm the same as him.
Oh, really? I'll hug Randy Savage.
Yeah, do that.
All right.
No, but Faye, I don't know. I think that guy was being a little bit more aggressive than you were likely to be, Faye. You'd probably just politely say, I would appreciate it if you didn't hug me. I
Oh,
don't
I've
know.
developed quite good sort of vibes of don't, but like your
Oh, get away
typewriter,
from me.
but like your
Oh,
typewriter vibe.
well, I guess I must be lucky then because you hugged me.
Yeah, well, it's like like your neighbor, he only chooses if it's the right moment.
Yeah, well,
What
so he's
choice
in
did you
he's
have?
in
You
he's
stayed in
in
my house for,
control. He's in control. That's annoying.
well, and what choice did Faye have? She was staying in my house for a week. So,
Exactly. I couldn't avoid you.
yeah, it was
That's my
hard.
story.
Thank God for COVID is all I can say, because the Dutch used to kiss, three kisses, one, two, three on each cheek, and since COVID that stopped. So I thought, oh, thank God for that.
And
I
how
know the
long have
COVID
you
really protected us from a lot of hugs.
Yeah, and certainly the sloppy kisses on the cheeks, I could always have done without that. At
All
least I'm
right.
not in
that,
France where they used
that
to do
one?
full.
I understand that one. I don't think I'd like, I don't understand the whole.
Well, it was always tricky as well, because it depends. You have to understand the protocol of which side you start on. Otherwise, you do a big smacker on the lips.
Ooh,
Interesting.
ooh.
Yeah, which was all right sometimes.
What annoyed you the most, other than the question?
Yeah, the question was quite annoying.
But my intuition and my creativity was on short supply last night while I was writing out my production
I
outline.
like this question. I thought it was fun.
Yeah,
Well,
the
I
only
knew you
problem is
would,
it
but
makes you think about stuff you thought you got rid of.
and then you realize, oh my God, I'm still irritated by that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So, Faye, you're not going to tell us what annoys you?
Yeah, I got annoyed this morning, as I always do, as is my want on a Sunday morning, because I always do the cryptic crossword, one of the cryptic crosswords, and it's you used to be able to find it really easily, and now you have to really hunt for it to be able to print it out. So, but what I really find annoying about it is that there's always a couple of clues that I think that's ridiculous clue. How can you get that out of that clue? So it's my that's what I call my Sunday morning shout at the crossword moment. So, because you can look up the answer, but it doesn't tell you how to pass it. How they got to where they got with the cryptic. So that's really annoying. And
Yeah,
what's good about it though is there's a crossword forum, and the forum get annoyed about it too, so you can get annoyed together, which is quite good.
there's nothing better than a bunch of people annoyed about the same thing.
That damn same clue.
We, we, we have that going on in Alberta. hundreds of thousands of people irritated by the federal government, and they complain about it all the time.
Oh yeah, well you have
Uh-huh.
that. That's unusual. Yeah.
Oh no, but they're busy trying to separate from Canada.
Yeah.
So anyway, so no, what annoyed me was first I thought it was MailerLite, which is the platform I use for my newsletter. And I was trying to create a landing page, which I did. It was fine that day. And then the next day when I went to do my newsletter, it kept on, when I went to log in, it kept on going error, error, error. And it did it like 5 times. So I thought, okay, this is the universe's way of telling me today's not the day to do the newsletter. So I thought, new day, it's bound to be different. Nope. It, it wasn't. And of course, that was Chrome, but I also have Edge as a browser.
Hmm.
So I went to Edge and there was no problem whatsoever. And then I was irritated about, that. If I wanted to make a list of all the things that irritated me this week, we might be here for a while.
Uh,
Because learning new things technologically, I always add a high degree of stress to it before I even start. So
tech stuff is your pet peeve.
it is. I just, yeah, whatever. I don't know. That's all that I can think of. Well, other than the fact that the weather would suddenly turn shitty, which is, kind of like the way that it is.
Yep.
So I guess we can just not be talking about that anymore. Because we've been talking and we're not going to get to Faye if I don't stop talking. She said just before she starts talking. So quickly, we're just going to talk about what's in the bowl for the month because as I said, I'll be doing things on Reels and Stories, a little bit more updates. So the overall energy as the sun moves into Gemini, because we're not quite there yet, is, oh my God, it's like batten down the hatches because the energy is going to be floating above the ground whether you want it to be or not. It's mostly air and fire, a lot of talking, a lot of movement, opportunities this month. Take your ideas and actually put them into some form of physical expression. But with the sun as it moves into Gemini, cozying up to Uranus, which is the planet of disruption, chaos. And if you thought you were going to get away with this or you were going to do this, think again. Things are likely to go this way, whether you want them to or not. So that energy is really raw and it's new and it's unpredictable. And I always say, well, Uranus is kind of like a toddler quite a bit of the time. But when it's in the early degrees of a sign, it's like a little kid that gets mad and starts looking around at whatever it can make a mess with. And that's somehow the way it's going to feel. So how are you going to negotiate that? Well, just do not expect that anything other than a bunch of new ideas that have the opportunity to express themselves at some point down the road. So I recommend that if you've got any great ideas, just write them down. You don't need to know exactly how you're going to bring them to fruition because it's not a time for that. Plus, we also have as the sun moves into Gemini, a void of course moon. So what does that mean from an astrological point of view? Essentially, the moon is not playing with anybody. It's she's just doing her own thing. And when she decides to do her own thing, there's a sense of, again, not being able to get things nailed down. Highly sensitive. A body course moon can be highly sensitive, and since it's in Cancer, you can magnify that by a lot. So at the same time, as you've got all this new curious energy running around in your consciousness and wanting to try new things because, Gemini wants to try everything because it's experienced. An idea is only an idea, and unless they actually get out there and either talk about it, because, you know, if you're talking about an air sign, that's what they do. For them, the experience is in the sharing of the information, but they also like to have the physical experience, and then they want to tell everybody about it. So if you have any Geminis in your life, just know that as Uranus goes into Gemini, especially for the first year or two, a lot of talking from most of the Geminis that you know. So back again to the void course moon, and it's going to be in what we call the crescent phase. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in the next episode. That's where you look over the past pitfalls that you might have had, either whether it's, you know, emotional inheritance from family members, you know, stuff that has yet to be resolved, you know, as you begin any new process in life, because that's what the new moon is. And the new moon we just experienced was in Taurus. There's a desire to plant your feet on the ground, but a very difficult time doing it. So again, don't expect a lot of external manifestation in the first stages of the sun being in Gemini. What else would I like to say about that? Yeah, just be open to your curiosity, especially with Sun conjunct Uranus. This is a good time to start listening. And sometimes Geminis are not always that good at listening because they've always got something to tell you, because they are a storyteller, or as I like to call them, the town crier. So if you want to know something, chances are Gemini is going to know it. What else did I made all these notes. I think I talked about, yeah, the heavy emphasis on air and fire. So energetically, um, it's a busy time. You're going to feel busy even if you're not busy, because that's the general energetic vibe. And it's not even necessarily going to be about you. So it's a good idea to find ways to ground yourself so you can actually figure out what's about you and what's about just the general vibe around you. Okay, so quickly we're going to move on and talk about, I always like to do a color card, and because of Gemini, there's got to be two colors that you can work with. This comes from Ina Siegel's color oracle. And so the first one was chocolate. Who doesn't need more chocolate? This one is easy to satisfy. You don't even have to wear chocolate. You just can go buy chocolate. So, but this is for nourishing your body and your soul. And I'm sure there are some people going to think, wonder why that is. But I figured chocolate's very good at nourishing your body and your soul. Okay. And the other one, summer people will like this one. It's watermelon. Now it's interesting because what I was talking about grounding yourself, this color is a shade of brown, which is very grounding. And this color is more connected to the sacral chakra, which has to do with emotions. So, but this one, I like this one because it says have fun with your inner child. So, what does your inner child like to do, Andy? Should I ask? I already know the answer. No.
Oh, well, right now she's making a picture of you.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you were going to say clowning. That's what I thought you were.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah. I think my inner child has to make stuff all the time. It's always like, finger painting essentially. I'm just like whatever she likes, then she's got to make it and do some iconic picture.
What about you, Faye? What does your inner child like to do?
Eat.
Well, that was a quick answer. Well, then I guess you can use both of these.
I don't actually like chocolate, but I do like watermelon. But I love the
Oh, that's
watermelon
great.
color.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine mixing chocolate and watermelon? That sounds
The
weird.
combination of colors is quite nice. I've got a pair of watermelon colored pants. They're actually
Well, there
the
you go. You don't have to
color
eat
was
it.
watermelon. I thought was quite funny. But yeah,
You could eat your
But,
pants.
could eat my pants. Yeah.
ooh, and because fabric doesn't taste very good.
Yeah, but that's quite a nice combination. But yeah.
Well, it's funny because I like chocolate and I don't like watermelon.
Oh, well, there you are. See.
So, We would do well together. You can eat the watermelon and I'll eat the chocolate.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we're essentially done with that, it's time for Faye and I to chat. And I okay, let's is there some way to change the order of the one
Well,
of these?
if you de-spotlight yourself, we should be both the same, I think.
Unpin myself?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's no going after him. Okay, this isn't working. Okay, let's try pinning myself. Okay. I told you technology was not my best friend.
You figured out?
Okay. Yeah, we got it sorted out. So welcome, Faye. So I'm so glad you joined me. As you know, obviously, we already said Faye stayed with me for about a week, and it was a wonderful time. And so I've always loved Faye's perspective. I think the first time I ever heard her speak was in New Orleans in 2012. Is that 2012?
Yep.
And could it be, were you in Denver? Were you in Denver? No,
No,
okay.
I was in Chicago though. I don't know. Were you in
Yeah.
Chicago though?
Yeah, but I was busy not feeling well.
Oh yeah, you were writing. Yeah, that's how we got to know each other because you wrote the thing. You made me pose with a
Oh,
tomato.
yeah.
Remember?
I tortured you by asking you 5 questions.
Yeah.
Anyway, that were not astrological. So
Well,
anyway,
one of them was you said what was my least favorite planet. That's how it started. That's how we got to know each other.
well, it's always fun to ask an astrologer what their least favorite planet is.
Yeah.
So anyway, Faye is an accomplished astrologer, therapist, and business consultant. She has a lovely book out on vocational astrology, which I would highly recommend for anybody who's trying to sort out what their vocation is meant to be. I could have said vacation too, but I didn't.
Well,
Anyway,
thank you.
how can you tell that I've already drank the Uranus and Gemini potion? And so today we're going to be talking about health and your belief system. And so I did send Faye some questions, and so now I have to look at the list to remind myself. It's work. Okay, so I just wanted, can you just tell everybody what in your experience led you to start to view those things, beliefs and health in the same package?
Well, it's probably quite a long question. But anyway, thanks for having me on just before I get going. um, um, I think where I really got, I mean, I've always been interested in what you believe and what you've been told, and I read Bruce Lipton's book a long time ago, The Biology of Belief. So I thought that was I think I like his earlier work better than the stuff he's doing now, but I really, really enjoyed looking at that, and he was talking a lot about genes and the environment. And then when I started doing my master's, it was in 2006, and in the middle of my master's, Ceres got upgraded and Pluto got downgraded. So I started, and I've got Mercury next to Ceres. So I thought I have to be her advocate and I have to start studying her. So that's what I did. So I got sort of vaguely obsessed with Ceres in 2006, because then I was looking at one of the papers I did was looking at the development of consciousness through planets and through how that fits. So I was always interested in that as well. So I started studying her, and what I realized, what I thought, because she was all about the environment, I suddenly in the middle of the night thought, oh, she's the planet of epigenetics, she's about environmental stuff. And so I went down that rabbit hole as well, and that's what got me sort of involved in looking at that and seeing how that works with health as well.
And so, what would you say? As I know it's a big topic.
Yeah, huge.
So could we just talk about how you find they're connected? So if a person happens to be just either if they're an astrologer looking at their chart, or just in general, every human being has beliefs. They have a body in which they live and may not be aware of the things that they believe about health.
Yeah, most people aren't. It's like a bit like being in astrology. We don't really always look at what our beliefs are around how the universe works, so it's part of a bigger whole, I think. But we've it's one of the things you said earlier, I think relates back to it. Stories are really important. The stories we grow up with and the stories we tell ourselves and the stories other people tell us, they really resonate within us. And until we uncover what they are, and that includes beliefs, then we don't really realize they're part of our makeup. So it's to do with that. So there's a whole lot of strands come together with health, of course, because when you're in astrology, people come because they're sick or because they've got a problem or they're diabetic or they've got a sore hip or they've got there's all kinds of health issues, physical issues usually, but also emotional issues that people come with. So uh, what I started doing was realizing, because once you're in astrology you can't help yourself do this, you're analyzing every single story for an archetype, for a planet. So one of the when people come with a health issue, I think, oh, I wonder what planet that is. Is it a muscle thing, or is it a I don't know, what is it? Is it a diabetic? What planet is being, I'm listing for a planet. I always say I have an astrological ear, so I'm listing for a planet. So, and sometimes, one of the things astrologers don't do, I think, is ask enough questions. Because one of the things I always say about health is the solution is in the problem, right? And I've coined this phrase astriopathy, which is like homeopathy, except it's using astrology. So if you've got a Pluto problem, the solution to it is Pluto. If you've got a Uranus problem, the solution is Uranian. So so that was part of the thought process that went into the bucket of what to do with health, if you like. And then there was another strand that came in, because I'm a therapist and a child therapist, is looking at that, because in therapy you look at what the trauma is, because obviously that my belief is that that health is part of your whole psyche. That the symptom that you have is something to do with what you think and what you believe and what's going on with you and the story you tell yourself. So that's a bit of a wider one. But then, so going back to the trauma of how it started is really fascinating for uncovering that. And so looking at what sometimes it's a really simple event that sets the scene for how you think about about health and what you're told.
Oh, yeah. Well, in my practice, I find that I attract a lot of people who have, strangely enough, uh, Plutonian, Uranian issues, right?
Yeah.
And trying, and so I love looking. I mean, you're right. The key is in ourselves. It always is. And whether you choose astrology as a pathway to understanding that, or you choose other modalities, the key is to remember that you can find the answer within it. It may not, the answer that propels you forward into some form of a solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
About insight, isn't it? And consciousness, really.
yeah, it's interesting. And I think that, I just, as you were talking, I was realizing, of course, depending on the preponderance of elements and modalities, that's also going to, in astrology, whether you're talking about fire, earth, air, water, cardinal, fixed, or mutable, those are also going to tell you part of the story. And you can, from my perspective, I just had a client recently who's got some health issues, and I could see by looking at his chart just how much of this was connected to trauma.
Yeah, nearly
And
always is.
that and of course I am the eternal optimist, and I always figure that there's got to be a solution somewhere.
Well, I mean, I think there is, but and what's happening now is, of course, is we're getting upgraded, I think, as human beings, rather than having to have, a technological hand or some kind of transhuman. We're getting upgraded. So we have, I believe that we have, anyway, my belief system is that we have certain abilities that are not awake yet within ourselves to heal ourselves as well. And a
Mhm.
part of that is about consciousness and believing, that we can do that we can fix, that we can heal ourselves with energy. It's all just energy. But one of the other problems is you've got a sort of nested belief system, right? You've got your own beliefs that your mother said, the only thing that's going to fix a headache is an aspirin. So you've got that sort of belief, right, maybe. Or then you've got a belief that if I never eat another apple, I'll be fine. Or you've got all these beliefs around food and what they're going to do for you. But then you've got an agreed belief as well that we're all into. Like one of the ones I often have a rant about, just to finish this line of thought, is that that if we've got the cancer gene, we're going to get breast cancer. If there's a thing about, there's a sort of an agreement within a lot of people that breast cancer is caused by the genes, by a cancer gene. So that's not true, actually, but I'll come on to that. But we live within an agreed belief, like globally
Yes.
as well, which is
Well,
difficult.
it's that whole notion of not understanding that science does continue to grow and change, and that
Yeah,
what was said 20 years ago, like all the stuff about cholesterol and salt and this.
yeah.
But I have a perfect story that fits with what we're talking about. So when I was 12,
Mm.
I had my tonsils out, and I'd had tonsillitis many times. So this is yeah. So I said to the nurse, "Look, there's blood running down my throat." She didn't explain to me that a small amount of blood was okay. When I said there's blood running down my throat, that's what I meant. I didn't mean anything else.
Yeah.
So that evening, I'm sitting there, my parents are there, and I throw up, and I'm sitting in a pool of blood.
Yeah.
Hey, if we even verge on horror stories in this podcast now.
Yeah, but that's
So,
that's
no,
a
no,
trauma.
but here comes the belief part. So, they couldn't really do anything. In order to stop the bleeding, they had to cauterize it immediately.
Mm.
So, the doctor who did that looked at me and said, "Leslie, well, I'm sorry this happened. I'm sure this hurts, but I can tell you, you will never have another sore throat as long as you live." And I have never had another sore throat. That is not logical. That's not logical. But I never get a sore throat. So it depends on the space, the place, and how vulnerable you are, and how much
Yeah.
stock you put in what the person said to you. Never
Yeah, and
mind.
it's something really, really small. It can be some really small event that gives you a fear of flying or something. I've got a good story about that. But the emotional traumas are just the same. But the other thing, I was just listening to somebody this week who's doing experiments here for talking about epigenetics, because the epigenetics is, a lot of, we're still in a sort of physical paradigm, a sort of everything is about medicine, everything's about taking pills, or everything's about operations, or the genes cause it. It's genetic. So there's all kinds of things of trying to find new genes, or whatever. But one of the things that comes out of Lipton's work as well, but also this guy was talking about, this guy's a virologist, but he was doing some experiments on DNA, because what epigenetics does is, epi means above the genes, so it's the thing that makes you ill is the not the gene itself, it's the expression of the genes quite often. So it's the environment that does that. Part of the environment is your physical environment, if it's cold, if you've got a television, a phone mast next to your bed, or those kinds of things. It's literally the environment, but also the emotional environment, and that can turn genes on and off. So what the experiment he's been doing is that showing that loneliness, that people who are old people who are lonely, it changes the genes, it changes the genetic expression and it makes them much less immune. It affects their immune system. So there's so many things we don't know about how the genes actually work. There's new science coming out all the time. And when what I love about, and that my other work is about using the series for healing, for help. This Planet series, because she was upgraded, and in 2006 was when all the when she was upgraded. In 2006, that was when when all the environmental stuff started coming out. It's when Al Gore's film came out, and it's when they sequenced the gene and realized that it wasn't genes causing a problem as well. So that's how I got started down that rabbit hole of series being epigenetics, and and looking at how you could heal that, and also using the Huber system, which is a whole other subject, to find out which planet was being triggered when. So there's a when thing.
Yeah. I want to play with that, but then this is why astrology is the best thing ever.
Yeah. So, for instance,
my opinion, of course, but
yeah, you could look at, like in your story though, you could look at when you were 12 and see what planet was being triggered, and then you could.
I was going to do that, but I didn't get around to it. Well, then it would have been moving into the third house, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you need to use the right house system.
It was about throat.
Anyway. Yeah, so you're going into the talky house, the third house of Gemini house. Yeah.
It'd be my own talky movie all day long.
Yeah, but if you've got a planet there, it makes it really interesting because you can work with that. And
I have Mars there.
So that's going down that road would be really interesting.
I just always think it's such an interesting story because, and it's stuck in my head my whole life. And until you started talking about this, I realized, I actually believed what he said. And that was the most important part. It wasn't what he said, it was the fact that I believed it.
That's a good thing, but also it's quite a Mars story, isn't it? It's blood, and it's cutting, it's surgery, it's all, so there's something else going along with that as well about Mars, about what you've decided about how your Mars works as well. So, it's very interesting to investigate that and how you can clean up your Mars and use it more, use the anger and the annoyance and the thing we were talking about earlier, like getting mad with technology, how you can use that, put that to good use.
So just as a way of kind of encapsulating this, if whether you're an astrologer or not, so what things would you suggest a person do if they wanted to figure out what are some of their beliefs about their health and well-being?
Well, what have you been told? What was the family story about health? Where you, I mean, like when we were kids, if you were sick, you were just sent outside and said, "Oh, you've hurt your knee, it'll be fine," that kind of stuff. Like, whereas now you'd be, "Oh no, you can't walk on that," So there's a whole thing about how your health is handled. Do you need to have 10,000 vitamins every day as a kid, or do you need to, there's different schools of thought, and that Jupiter comes into that, what your belief system is about. Jupiter's about what your faith, where you put your faith and what you believe in. So looking at Jupiter astrologically is interesting, but just thinking about what were the family beliefs around that. Did you have a mother that fed you chicken soup, or did she say, "Oh, you'll be fine, just go outside and climb another tree"? There's a big difference as to how you're going to handle, things that come along. And then the other thing I'd say to people is do your research. Don't believe everything you read from the white coat syndrome. We tend to be, there's a Saturn problem as well with thinking that all doctors have authority. I think for health, we have to take responsibility for our own health. That's the other thing I'd say. So is it true what you're being told? Is a set diet of only rice and beans, is that for you? or is it, do you need to actually get in touch with what you need yourself? Because I think everybody's different in what they need. So there's a lot of
to listen to your body. I know my doctor recently, because I just had all the bone densitometry and all that other stuff. And she's mentioned statins to me for cholesterol. I ignore that.
Because you've got to do the research on that too, because the statins is.
I just listen to my body, and I already know that I'm, one of the 2 to 3%. If anybody's going to have a reaction to a drug, it's going to be me.
Yeah, but also the statin.
I don't buy into that. Every problem can be solved by taking a drug.
No, but the statins don't even work. If you do the actual research, it's rubbish. So,
Well,
the other thing is do the.
What I'd heard, I think, was that it causes all kinds of other problems. And I have to laugh, and this speaks to what we're talking about, because there's an ad on American TV, because we don't allow a lot of that in Canada, of this woman has problems with Tourette's because she's taking a medication.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
okay, so we're going to make a medication, and so pertaining to your thought about research, like, take a look around and remember that most medical research is done on white men.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that
So,
too. But do your own research. You really have to grip up and read everything that you can now too. That's the benefit, because that the people that do best with health issues are the most difficult patients.
say that again.
The people that do better with health outcomes are the patients that are the most difficult. The ones that ask lots of questions, argue with the doctor, say, I'm not having that, don't give me statin. They're the ones who survive. They're the ones who get through health crises better. There's been research done on that. And doctors say that as well. And there's some doctors that don't like to be challenged on that. So there's a big change coming, I think.
There's just so much, and we could talk for a lot longer about this.
We could.
So, is there anything else that you would like to say that we have not talked about? Because it is a big subject, and I would just say to people, take some time and really let things settle in, and you'll be surprised. One thought may lead to another, and then you're going to start thinking, and maybe feeling, because sometimes your body will tell you.
Well, always. I mean, it's always the body that's trying to help you, I think.
Yep. Well, it's funny because, I've had a lot of trauma in my life, and I realized, and I didn't have a very good relationship between my head and my body.
Yeah.
And one of my friends said to me recently, so has your head or your mind forgiven your body? And the answer came up, no. So that led me down a road of realizing that my mind coped and my body carried. So
yeah, that can certainly happen with air signs. With air signs are all in their head. So I know about that one.
I appear all the time.
Yeah. But questioning is always good, and the inner child work is also, you come across health things as well, but the inner child is always, where is it stored in the body? What you're trying to get with inner child work is with your tonsils, what was the conclusion? Not just that you, I mean, there was a good side of it as well, but it's obviously, as a child, really frightening to have blood all over the place, so, and nobody explains it to you. So what was your conclusion about dealing with that? The conclusions are the things that, especially when you're little, the conclusions of things that you reach, especially when you're really young, because you think it's about you, are really important. It's my fault, or especially if you're under 6, or if you're really little, everything revolves around you. So the conclusion is, I don't understand this, or something, whatever it is. But getting that can really help.
My conclusion was nobody listens to me.
Yeah, so that's a really important one. That's starting in the Gemini phase. So that would be a whole, if you were my client, that would be a whole session just on that.
Yes, probably several. No.
Yeah, no, because if you get that, if you get that, you can change it, because that's your deep conclusion in your body, is that no one's ever going to listen to me.
Yes,
so
which is why I started a podcast.
Yeah, so that's part of the healing. But there's little layers of it that come off and off, and all the time. So
yeah, life is so creative and so interesting.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we think it's just something to be gotten through.
Yeah, and I mean we've got to undergo things, I think, to learn. I think health issues, and certainly our and belief systems and relating to health we sometimes have to change them, and we don't like doing that. And the other thing that happens is sometimes that what your parents believe, if you've got different Jupiters, sometimes what your parents believe is not necessarily what you believe. But you don't, changing that is quite difficult. It's when you've been brought up like a really heavy duty Catholic, to get out of that is quite difficult. You have to do it in your Gemini phase or in your Saggy phase or something, to rebel against it. But it's quite hard because it's kind of in your cells, everything's stored in the body.
The only reason I laugh is because my grandfather, I think the adult who probably had the most effect on me when I was small, used to say that men go to church to close business deals and women go to church to show off their new clothes. So I was already born into a family that had healthy skepticism and a little bit of a sarcasm around. Well, we could keep talking about this, but we're running out of time. Thank you so much for coming and giving me, as always, because one of the best medicines on the planet is humor, and Faye's very good at humor.
Thanks for having me.
Well, and you're welcome. And so we just have one small segment to get through before we're going to close down episode 1 of the Gemini cycle. And so rather than doing AstroBites for the sign of Gemini, I did them instead for Uranus and Gemini. And for anybody who's going to be at NORWAC who might catch this, Andy has started a new zine, and the AstroBites will be actually in print. But anyway, so I did this so that for each of the sun signs to support you as you tap into the energy of Uranus in Gemini, which is going to be there till 2033. So, and it's always helpful to have a little bit of, for me, an astrobite is like a mantra, so you can use it for whatever you like, and it really is important. It seems most important now because Uranus is very much about shaking up whatever it touches. In this case, it's words and ideas and thoughts, and which is it was a perfect topic to have Faye come on and talk about belief, because belief comes down to thinking, which comes down to words, just to see how words can actually affect your overall well-being. So I know I had other stuff there and I don't know where it went. Anyway, so I'm going to just flat out read these because I didn't memorize them. So for Aries, and this is probably going to worry Aries, it's stillness. For Taurus, it's purge. For Gemini, it's heart, because of course Gemini can get stuck in its head and forget that the heart exists. Cancer, open. Leo, calm. Virgo, forage. I tried that one out on one of my Virgo friends and she loved it. She thought I said forage, but I said forage. Libra, expand. Scorpio, depth. Sagittarius, value. Capricorn, clarify. Aquarius, meaning, and Pisces, wisdom. So, and then I always have a little quote at the end, and it's called Wrap It Up. And today it's an African proverb. It is not wrong to go back for that which you have forgotten, which is very germane to what we were talking about today, which is why I picked it. So anyways, thank you so much for joining me, and Faye and my producer Andy and all the wonderful people who showed up. I'm going to say goodbye, and we're going to move on to episode 2 in about 3 minutes. Don't count. I hope it's 3 minutes. Anyways, until next time, be true to yourself. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Have fun with Frank.